If you're going to make jokes in a speech, they have to be funny. That was awful. Hi there, I'm Colin Stone and this is Talk Shop, here to analyse the communication and presentation skills of the world's big names, to highlight what works and what they can still change. This week, it's a group of Labour politicians, including Sir Keir Starmer and Anas Sarwar, reacting to their by-election win in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. Let's get into it.
And they've moved right here. And thank you so much to everyone who's made it happen, because you've created history and we've done it together. And Jackie and I are going to tell you about the campaign in numbers, aren't we, Jackie?
We are indeed. One illegal train journey.
I'm stopping it there. This is audio as it happened rather than your speakers being broken. I'm going to come back to this.
30 parliamentary days suspended.
So as you can see, we're experiencing technical difficulties. I'm going to skip forward to the solution, which is give Jackie a different microphone. Or do without microphones and rely on, as we'll see with a couple of the speakers later, the microphones that are actually on the camera. So here is a really simple step. Make sure everything is working before the speakers themselves get there. The problem, I believe, is that Jackie has got a lapel microphone and her colleague has a handheld, and that's leading to Jackie doing some creative sidestepping on the stage to find the sweet spot of, frankly, what appears to be a broken microphone. So particularly ahead of big events like this, a victory speech in a huge by-election win, make sure everything is working, everything sounds good, and importantly, the speakers know where to stand if there's feedback. Even something as simple as that can avoid this kind of incident which makes viewers switch off.
You'll all know the answer to this one. 0 hours contracts. Press releases issued. Social media impressions. Billboards launched. Ad vans. Votes cast.
30,407.
I did say I was going to skip to the solution, but there are two things I want to raise. Number one, this does demonstrate why you need to get your kit working and making sure that everything sounds great before you start speaking, because this is designed to be the big, emphatic start of these victory speeches, where we have the stat read out and Jackie Bailey's going to reply with the really impressive number. But because her microphone is failing to work, she's relegated to yelling and holding up fingers in the air, which fails to work when you get to a number like 30,742. You need a lot of fingers for that. But the second thing I want to draw your attention to, it's really interesting, is watch what the other three speakers are doing whilst the main two who have the microphones are talking. Keep an eye on this.
Press releases issued. Social media impressions. Billboards launched.
Why is that happening? You're meant to be presenting a united front, and the three of you are having sharing a private joke? I feel like the teacher saying, Keir, do you mind sharing that with the class? We've got two people speaking right now who are listing off all these impressive stats about your by-election victory, but instead you're too busy chuntering amongst yourselves. So it's really important, particularly when you're in a position like this, that you present a united front. And we do see some of this towards the end, clapping and cheering from all of the people on the stage. But frankly, that's just rude. They're talking. Listen.
Votes launched. Ad vans. Votes cast.
30,477.
That got a big cheer because we actually heard what she said.
One seismic swing.
A seismic 20.4% swing, and I have to say, not just a swing, a play park.
If you're going to make jokes in a speech, they have to be funny. That was awful.
Number of projected seats.
Well, 42 according to Professor Sir John Curtis, but we are not complacent.
If you're familiar with our training, that of course is a classic pink elephant telling people what you're not doing And of course, it puts the very thing that you've just said into their minds. For example, I'm not too young to teach people how to speak to journalists. And now you're questioning my age, even though I brought it up. So Jackie there has said, and we are not complacent. And now you're forcing the audience to think, well, maybe we are complacent. 42 projected seats? It's a done deal.
One amazing candidate.
One new Scottish MP.
A friend for me.
Welcome
To Scotland's newest MP, Michael Shanks!
Before we hear from Michael Shanks, a word on gender representation on stages like this. Here's what I mean. There are 5 people on that stage. 4 of them are men. I appreciate 3 of them, either the UK leader, the Scottish leader, or the new MP. Does the host of the event also need to be a man? Because in this role, Jackie Baillie is essentially shouting out numbers. So absolutely, Jackie is more than capable, more than qualified to be able to do the hosting of this sort of event. So it's always worth considering, what is the audience seeing here? Is it men introducing more men and women are kind of off to the side? Because here is a perfect example of where you could switch those roles and you would have a better balance over the piece. Okay, let's hear from Mr. Shanks.
A remarkable result. And I want to talk a bit about the thousands of people that we've met during this campaign, because we have spent 6 months on every single street in this constituency, talking to voters at every single door about their hopes, their aspirations, their dreams, their fears, their concerns.
So this is largely good. He's using what we call speaker stance, which is rather than planning the same motion over and over again, or as we saw with Liz Truss, everything was, my fish was this big. He's letting his hands naturally do what they want to do. It's when they come back into a central position, he's fidgeting, he's picking his nails or he's rubbing his fingers, and then he relaxes again and his hands do what they want to do. So speaker stance, when your hands come back together, they should just be in essentially a soft hold rather than holding or picking or pulling. Other than that, he's doing well.
But thank you in particular to the thousands of people who voted for me, who put their trust in me, but also the 80,000 people of this constituency who I'll represent whether they voted for me or not. The change starts here, but it certainly doesn't end here. Change is coming across the whole of the United Kingdom, and it's coming with Keir Starmer and Anas Sarwar.
It's a good victory speech. His pace is great, which is often surprising when you are that excited, you're that passionate, and you've got that much nervous energy. Of course, he can channel his hands into more productive ways, particularly when he's waiting for an audience to respond or to stop responding. But his language is good, he's nice and chatty, comes across well. Well done.
And 2 years on, we have gone from 32 points behind the SNP to winning our first parliamentary by-election for over 12 years. From a 32% deficit to being double the SNP vote share in this constituency and an over 20% swing, demonstrating that
A quick note there on numbers. You can make numbers stand out by taking your time over them. That is what Anas has done here. He's talked about the 12 years. He talked about the double-digit share, and he's really putting emphasis on those words, on those numbers, to make them sound as big as they are.
But friends, the change we've seen in Scotland would not have been possible if over the last 3 years, Keir Starmer hadn't worked to change our Labour Party. In a short space of time.
This is a really classic political double pink elephant. This would not have been possible if Sir Keir had not done X, Y, and Z. It's such an easy fix because that's now 2 negatives in the space of about 5 or 6 seconds. The word only will always take you to the positive version of this phrase. If we hadn't done this, we wouldn't have done that. If we don't invest now, we won't improve in future. So if you use the phrase only, it flips that entirely. It is only because of Sir Keir's leadership that we're now in this position. Only by investing now can we see progress in the next 6 months. Only by watching this video to the end will you get the discount code. Let's keep going.
The party of change, the SNP and Tories anti-change. But let's now build between now and the next general election and deliver that historic Labour government that changes people's life here in Scotland and right across the UK. And that campaign right across the UK will be led by my friend, Keir Starmer.
It's a good speech by an ass. There's one key piece of feedback I would give him. This is a victory speech. Smile, because that is what's going to get your warmth across. Watch what happens as soon as I stop smiling here. I say this is a really good speech. He's talking here about the great victory that Labour have had in this by-election. You can see I've lost something. So the smile comes back in, and I say, this was a good speech by Anas. And particularly at the key points when he's talking about leading us to a general election victory, or about how proud he is of how hard everybody's worked. Bring in the smile, because that's going to show your warmth, it's going to show some friendliness, it's going to show some personality. The words are well chosen, the delivery is well done, even his presence, his stage presence, it's good too. This is what he's missing, which is a subtle smile. Rather than telling him to be like a Cheshire cat, which is disingenuous and false, just a gentle smile. It's going to help elevate this to a really high level. Once again though, nice speech. Okay, now time for Sir Keir.
Thank you. They said that we couldn't change the Labour Party, and we did it. They said that we couldn't win in the south of England and the north of England, and we did it. They said you'll never beat the SNP in Scotland, and Rutherglen, you did it!
Yeah. You may have heard about something called the rule of threes in the past, and this is a technique that works effectively in presentations because audiences are teed up to respond to things that are delivered in threes. Unsure why, but it works. This is a good example of it. Sir Keir has said, they told us we couldn't do that, and we did. They told us we couldn't do that, and we did. And they told us we couldn't beat the SNP and Rutherglen. You did it. And he crescendos at the right time. The audience knows that's the end of the list. They applaud. It works nicely. You can do the same thing, build it into a longer presentation, talk about 3 things that you're there to address, and the audience is then teed up to hear those 3 things. There's only one bit of advice I'd give to Sir Keir, and that is when he's crescendoed there, he can join in with the applause, because what he ends up doing is he goes for one hand on the hip. And rather than being a cowboy or a superhero, he is the leader of the UK Labour Party, so far better instead, just applaud everybody, or put your hands in speaker stance, wait for the applause to die down, and keep going.
It's a first step on a very, very important journey for all of us in Scotland, for all of us across the whole of the United Kingdom. We get the chance now to lay out our positive case for change when we go to our conference in Liverpool. That's what we will be doing, setting out the change that we want to see in this country.
Audio issues again, but I want to highlight the word choice if you failed to catch it. He has contrasted the Conservative Party conference when he talked about Rishi Sunak being a nodding dog. He mentioned doing a conga with Nigel Farage. I'll need to Google that if I really want to. But then he's talked about the Labour Party conference, and he's mentioned there, with the audio issues, setting out our plans for change. Now you can see the difference there. Nodding dog's very visual. Setting out our plans for change, what does that mean? And so what he needs to do is take the same visual language he's using there. Okay, it may be far away from congas and nodding dogs, but to put that into, here's what we're going to do at the Labour Party conference. We're going to do A, B, and C, and be really specific about it, because it means that we've got the visuals of the Conservative Party conference. Where's the visuals for the Labour Party conference? Setting out our plans for change? Wow, sign me up. Sounds thrilling. So that's where, if you can be as visual as possible, you're going to engage an audience. You're going to interest an audience. So maybe he's saying that because he's unsure what those plans look like in real terms. That may be the case for this vague, abstract jargon, but it is something to look at. If you can be as specific and as visual as possible, people say, huh, that sounds really good. A conga at the Labour Party conference? Sign me up.
But because we have changed, we are the hope of change. Because we've changed, we can answer the question, why Labour? Because we've changed, we are hungry for power. And because we're changed, we are ready to serve across Scotland and across the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, everyone. Fantastic campaign.
There's a lot of change in the last 20 seconds of that. It's an interesting end, and I want to highlight why. He's talking for 20, 30 seconds and it's kind of meandering, unsure where it's really going. And then he artificially generates that energy by saying, thank you so much, great campaign, goes in for the hug, demonstrates to the audience, okay, he's finished, we're all done here. And that's the issue, is that it was losing steam, when at the end of a speech, you should be building up a head of steam. A ripple of an applause suddenly ends with rapturous cheers and people on their feet. But this is often what happens when we're ad-libbing or we have to give a speech at short notice. I'm unsure how much preparation was done ahead of this event. But it's always worth considering. Where am I taking the end? How am I building up to the finale? So rather than having to artificially generate that energy and show the audience, hey, I'm finished, it's really obvious, you end on a really, really strong note. In this instance, it fizzled out and then we got the thank you and the good night. So that's something to look at in future. If you are ad-libbing a speech, figure out your ending, figure out even the last couple of sentences before you start speaking. My overall take on those speeches is they're polished, but there's absolutely another level each of them could have got to. Whether that is to do with the hands, it's the smile, it's the enthusiasm, it's the posture. Even small things like, are we all wearing a suit jacket? Because Sir Keir has rolled up his sleeves. What look are we going for here? Because even the appearance of the people on stage is giving off a message to the audience. Another interesting thing is that all of them left their notes behind. Apparently this was all ad-libbed or memorized, or they'd done some scribbled notes beforehand. It's okay to use notes, even if it's just a handheld piece of A5 or A6 paper, because it means that, particularly when you come to the end of speeches, it ends with a real bang, rather than fizzles out at the end. I trust you've enjoyed this edition of Talk Shop, and if you want to find out how you can grow your confidence in public speaking, head over to our Pink Elephant Academy and use the discount code TALKSHOP for 30% off everything. The link is in the video description on YouTube. Until next time, smile and speak slowly.